Now it's we're not saying any names.
Yeah, right.
What?
This is gonna be. Talk to you about.
Do we have- We'll jump on the fucking things too. We'll just give her another
I
minute
don't
or
think
two.
she's on the committee, so we can do housekeeping with that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order, please. Go. All right, thank you, everybody. Before we start, I just want to say a welcome to Councilor Morris for joining us today as well here too. Who's on the steering committee along with Councilor Getty as well too, and the mayor who could not make it with us today. Okay, starting off with the approval of the agenda. Any late items? Oh. All right. Recommendation that the Community Center Joint Management Committee approve the agenda for the June 25th, 2024 meeting. Judy? Second. Perfect. All in favor? Thank you kindly. Okay, adoptions of minutes. Now this is including the change that Gail sent via email here regarding the motion. So essentially we're looking for any other changes, or are we going to adopt as amended?
Did we adopt them as amended?
Maybe second. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you kindly. Moving along. Okay. Public comments. Do we have anybody online?
See anybody online?
Any questions? Nobody here?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. Getting right along then. Okay, business arising from the minutes. So a little bit of a background for policies and process overview. So what we've done, we've come up with a package of information that's going to go to council with our recommendation. And so as opposed to trickling a bunch of things in, we're doing it all at once. And that's what we've been working on. So for the next little bit, we're going to have Lee talk, Seth here in there as well too, and Jillian about what we've been working on over the last number of months here. So maybe just jump into rental process. Lee? Sure.
Can I just quickly interject for just quick,
Yeah.
two things.
Sure.
One, I'm gonna have to leave early,
Mhm.
probably around 5:15 or so, to just let the folks know. And two, just, this is not a fight with the blackberries.
Sorry. I just wanted to know what the other guy looked like.
It was a special string, so.
Oh.
I had a fight with blackberries this morning, but there you go. Sorry, Jillian.
I just wanted to add one quick little thing about the process
Sure,
overview,
please.
because in the anticipation that our community is going to be very interested in this meeting, everybody be watching to learn about the rates.
Sure.
Just to mention a bit about the different subcommittees that we formed and how we
Yeah,
got to here. So, and please, anybody jump in, because I know some of you remember pieces much more possibly incoherently than me, but so we started off sort of everybody talking about everything, and we recognized it was a huge volume of work to get through. So we created the rates, start with the values. That was it. Values and core values model. So there was the values and core values subcommittee, the management model subcommittee, the rates and fees subcommittee, the policy subcommittee, and I think that was it, right? So, and then we started, so the committees went off and did a lot of work, and we came back, our subcommittees came back reporting and having bigger conversations, resulting in more work by the subcommittees. We've also had a couple of meetings that were workshopping through some of this, like workshopping through some language or through the rates. And then we're able to bring it back together. And then as we found the work of the different subcommittees starting to merge together into one, then basically that's come together in the package of policies and documentation that we have today.
Thank you.
Well summed up.
A little bit more I did. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm just not
Richard.
the crowds,
Yeah.
thinking about the crowds, so crowd chance.
Okay, so I am going to share the rental process documents. For clarity, the rental process document will be included in the rental policy document. We just found it easier to break it out into its own document so that we could go through it step by step and have it just be in its own space for a little bit, but eventually today it was the policy as a whole. So I've highlighted some changes for conversation. Let's see if I so hopefully I'll just remember. The following, shall I read the whole thing? Since we do have Councillor Morris with us here,
I can read along.
Okay. Or should I?
Just jump to where the things are.
Yeah, highlighted this. Okay, so one of the first comments that I received back when I sent things out was that stakeholders or what was it, internal, didn't quite capture everybody properly. So I'm put in stakeholders for now. I'm happy to.
So you're looking for the right word, right?
Still looking for the right word for this first priority, which includes municipality and council, community rec, arts on Bowen. But going on from there, one of the things that came out during our conversations was about priority and what priority means. So I think we've found a good place now. So stakeholders may place a hold without a deposit up to 24 months before the rental date, maintain that hold up to 6 months before the rental date, and they can be either released without penalty or converted to a booking. I had a question about 6 months because all the other groups have much later until they have to release their holds. But I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we can do about that, whether that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I think within practice, it's the planning of the local groups, like and how far they're able to plan in advance and how it fits in with their cycle.
So yeah, so sorry, what I more meant was for the stakeholders, these three groups here.
Yes.
Having to release their hold 6 months ahead.
Yeah. And I think it's those core groups, so I'm looking particularly at the heart, and maybe you'd like to speak to that about your planning cycle, whether 6 months, you know what I mean, is to be able to be planning that far in advance.
Or would you?
As an organization.
Whether you needed a space, because I'm not sure that community rec might know for sure. Or
Yeah.
Part might be for sure 6 months out to be able to let it go so that it could go to other renters.
Probably,
Probably.
yeah.
With the exception of the results of the grant.
Sorry? Yeah,
No, I'm just,
I was talking about grant.
so she can
cycles.
speak to that.
Yeah, just with, with grant cycles, we would need to know, we would need to have time to write the grant and look for the performers, the bookings.
Right.
I think 6 months is fine.
So you get all that organized 6 months before the.
Yes,
At
hopefully,
least.
once we, get through this first season, we'll be a little bit more ahead of the ball.
I'd like to add to that. I know that for January to June, that is accurate. But for the September to December portion, it will be problematic. The reason is that a lot of the touring funding, the grants go in on June 28th. And we hear back in September. So if we have a booking for October, November, December, it's going to be within short order. So those would be, at least one of those, we would have to say, we will present it with or without the funding. But we might not be able to do that for all of them. So I think 6 months is realistic for our January to June dates, and I don't think it's realistic for fall engagements. And so what that would the problem that would be created is that it would put a preponderance of the Hearts booking into the latter half of the year to be more risk-free.
Maybe make a proposal to move it to it, because it's the primary three partners, to move it to a 3-month period, right? I mean, you're gonna know in advance, but that just gives that opportunity for changes.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like it's gonna be.
And sorry,
Yeah.
other people had other things to say.
Well,
Is there a handout?
Do we have a handout here?
Oh,
Well, I was just gonna, twofold question, was gonna ask, well, what kind of time frame do you need? Would be.
I think that going back to the 3 month, it attends to a lot of it, attends to a lot of the problems. 6 months would force us to be very prudent in our in our programming from September to December. And we'd still have to take some risks because we'll hear in September. And so we'll have to eat it for an October show, but we might as well have something programmed in October. It'd be unfortunate to let the fall go by without a good program in place, like a performance group. So I think 3 months is a safer choice. Thank you for bringing that up, Kim. I do think that's 3 months would.
And being able to cancel without penalty is good too, because if we're not successful with a grant and we have to back up out of the plan, then we won't be penalized.
But I think it's also worth saying too, say 6 months comes out and you can convert that, hold to a booking, then 6 months, it doesn't have to be at that 3 month rate as well too, right? So.
We would,
Yeah.
we would book it when we know
Yeah.
that we're successful with
Yeah.
it. Liam, you said you had 2 questions.
Well, I was just gonna sort of say like. It's along the trial and error perspective of like, shift it to the 3 months, see how that goes and then if we find that that their bookings are getting canceled and then we're not being able to fill those spaces, then revisit that. And I think it's just the nature of the trying to avoid the beast, but that we're gonna have to just try this out and see how it works.
That's the premise on all of them.
Yeah. All right, I want to keep us moving along here because we've got a lot still to go through.
I have one.
Jump over. Sorry, Mimi?
Small detail, I don't know if it's too late to change this, but I'm wondering in the spirit of community efforts. The word priority, I'm wondering if we could change it to category.
Sure.
It's a bit more neutral. Priority seems to be kind of a hierarchy. Just a bit of feedback there.
Category, because priority means you get first dibs,
Yeah,
which is what we want, right? These groups, so.
just want to make sure,
So category, like if they, I just wanted to be clear for.
make sure that that's expressly in there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll change that to 3 months and, sorry, I'm assuming rec would be 3 months.
Yes, that's great.
Usually covering the front, right?
But before we go on, I actually would like to say that I sort of agree with Mimi. Like I'm booking right now for next year's, and I've called people who are theater presenters on Bowen and said, is this gonna conflict with your date? So we might have the category one where we can book ahead, but we're not trying to trump anyone. We're really trying to massage the schedule. So, and yes, it might turn out that we get it at 24 and they get it at 21. So there's a priority in terms of time, or there's a preference in terms of time, but I like the category word myself.
Right, so you think it's inherent in the writing of it, that the priority is there, so you don't have to put it in the heading?
Why don't we just scratch first priority, second priority, just call it stakeholders, committees, groups, private and professional advisors?
Sure.
Well, it is first choice, I mean, because you're 24 months for the community, for the stakeholders. And then the next group only gets, there's 3 months lag in there.
Right.
Where hopefully the stakeholders will pick not all of the times.
Yep.
And leave some, so the next group, so it is first choice, second choice.
And it's recognizing the capacity of the organization to plan ahead. So it's not like priority seating and on the airlines where you get better service. Priority just means these organizations have the ability to plan further ahead than other groups do, right? And then you're sort of you're encouraging planning behavior. People with recurring activities and longer programs, and then at the very bottom are people who are doing one-offs and using for space. But I'm happy, I would suggest taking the word out because it's inherent in the text.
It is.
I'm happy to follow the direction.
Just thinking like the Fish and Wildlife Club had a big conference here a number of years ago. So somebody like that, if you're planning a big conference, or if the Islands Trust was wanting to hold a trust council meeting, they're probably planning, especially for a conference, at least 2 years ahead.
Right, and they can go through one of the 3 top stakeholders to make their booking if they want to. Because they can I don't think some of them are gonna partner up with the municipality, right?
Yeah, well, the
Fish
Fish and
Wildlife.
Wildlife Club would
Right.
necessarily fit that, yeah.
So I've just looked up the synonyms for category, and it's group, class, sort, grouping, type, set, kind, or classification. And priority is, I just lost it. Importance, precedence, urgency, import, significance, primacy, main concern, right of way. So I think Mimi's right in terms of, the hierarchy. And the name is almost irrelevant in terms of what the actual content of these things is. So, if there was a concern in terms of just putting people off with the use of the word priority, then something that's neutral like category, still as stakeholders and community groups and
Or I can just suggest it. Stakeholders, community groups.
just without private commercial.
Yeah, just take the word out, just cut it.
Yeah.
Oh, read it.
Categories A, B, C.
It's so neutral.
It's kind of like the
Yeah.
go quick, go school.
Yeah, it's so neutral.
To the
That's where.
Central document.
This isn't about rates, this isn't on any public like documentation in the same way as a rate sheet. Right? It's just us understanding them.
But
Well,
most
we-
other websites have a more of a neutral category, category A, B, or C.
Yeah, this is not on the website,
But
is it? Is it?
well, it'll be
What's gonna
accessible, it's a policy.
I would think you would want it because you need to know which category you fall into to.
have a front page?
All right, are we happy with A, B, and C? Category A, B, and C?
Leaving
Let's do it.
stakeholders and community groups or just
Yeah.
category?
Right.
Thank you. Okay, category B, I'll edit this later. Community groups may place a hold on a specific room for a specific time up to 21 months before the rental date. Hold a rental time for a specific space with a deposit of 25% of the full rental fee payable to the VICC. The full rental fee is due no later than 14 days before the rental period. So I took out the 2550 full because it just feels clumsy. And it was kind of a nightmare administratively wise in ActiveNet. And just went with this. So essentially one thing that you get for being category B is that you get to book 21 months, 3 months before private, but you also only have to put 25% down and get a shorter cancellation period. Whereas private or commercial renters, 18 months and also 50% of the full rental fee. And I was going to ask about whether 6 months is too long or 3 months for when the rental fee is due.
I think it's hard even for a private or commercial, not for 100% 6 months before the event.
Yeah, that's what I was unsure about. But I think at a positive 56%, I think it's probably doable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because it's more,
What's the least amount of time that we need to pay somebody for a big rental?
3 months.
3? We changed to 6 to 3. The last paragraph.
and then how does everybody feel about the level of deposits being also a benefit of your category? Not your priority, but your category.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of being in that category is the amount of your deposit that's due up front and then your full rent.
We also talked about the ability of the typical community groups in terms of,
Yeah.
commercial or private interest would have a budget and presumably money available. And the community groups might have to sell tickets and get some money before they could,
Yeah.
unless they had.
That's my same concern with the 14 days before any expected revenue even comes in for
But
community.
that's the
group
full
commission.
rental fee. I mean, where are they gonna
Yeah.
come up with the 25% deposit? That's gotta come up on 21 months before. If I'm reading this correctly.
Up to.
I mean, if you book it 21 months before, then you're gonna have to put down, so.
My worry is like some community groups might not be able to, do the X number of hundreds of dollars or $1,000 to do.
Right.
So
So
14 days before.
I think the policy in principle is good and simple. The execution of it is where the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
So somebody could call, well, this is what we get, someone calls and puts a hold on it, but it's not a firm hold because they haven't put their deposit down. But we're aware that they want it to be used. Someone else calls before they put their deposit down and says, we want the same time. Well, we call the first person and say, you need to put your deposit down now because somebody else is after your time. So that's when the deposit goes down. And once the deposit is down, there is a hold on it. It's being held until the event. Now, the payment, the billing date, the fee is due 14 days before the event, right? So in some cases, the groups have no problem paying that because of the nature of the activity. Some groups, because they're revenue generating on the date of it, we work with them so that we're able to get that money on the day of the event, right? But that's us adapting to our own policy, right? So you don't necessarily have to write all that in and make a very complicated policy. So I think the policy itself is sound. It's more in how it's executed.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to write down how it's executed so that if you get hit by a truck, somebody else will know the process is.
That's right, but you have that within the contract, your letter of agreement that you have with the group that's rented it. So you make amendments to it. You literally change the clause upon signing it so that everyone's clear on it. So it's written down, but it's done on a kind of a case-by-case basis, which I think is really good when you're first starting out, because this is a whole new enterprise and got user groups haven't used the space before and fees that they may not have encountered before.
So you can't take any vacation for the first 2 years.
Okay, so are we good with 50% 90 days?
I have a question, it might be later on, but what if they do cancel? What's the fee?
That's a cancellation. So,
Can you explain that just so maybe that might help a little bit with this?
yeah,
Is if
sure.
someone's paid 25% and they do cancel, how much do they get back?
It's in the actual rental. That's a lot.
The policy?
What's that? Yeah, I think so. It is, so if you don't cancel with enough notice, it's a partial refund minus, I think we decided 15%.
Administration.
Administrative fees to cover the active event fees and things like that. If you put a deposit down and you don't pay and you lapse, this will be in the thing, but if you go past the cutoff date, you just forfeit the deposit and your rental.
So now you're confusing, is everything that's in here,
It'll eventually go into
well
there,
then why are we even looking at that?
because it was easier to, for us anyways, to figure out the process as its own self before putting it into the.
But you're gonna want council's approval of the rental
Yeah.
policy.
Council won't see the
Oh, okay.
process, but the process was just easier for us to figure out, yeah. It's been a lot of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's keep, booking a room, the Bowen Theater. It is understood that the Bowen Theater will be heavily used by the Hearth Arts Bowen on Community Rec, municipality and the community for a variety of functions, and that the use and rental of this room is different than other spaces in the PICC. Felt that this was important to add just to clarify why it's different than all the other rooms. So the minimum rental period is 4 hours with the option to add additional time in 1 hour increments unless the rental is flipped within 30 days. Sorry. Hard to get my theater voice. Unless the rental is booked within 30 days of the start of the rental period, when the minimum rental period may be reduced to 1 hour increments. So essentially 4 hour increments, unless it's 30 days, and we're trying to fill the space. 4 hour
So in 30
increments.
days, it's empty, just looking for somebody to.
Yep, you wanna come in,
Lots
with
of revenue.
to book for an hour, great. Community group, or sorry. Community group or commercial or private interests or renters? Interests?
Renters.
I think renters. Sorry. May be restricted to 2 weekend holds in a month. May.
As Will said.
Deposits and refunds, rental fees, more than, so this is for the group to decide on, I've talked to Kristen about this. Already, but rental fees of more than $100 are subject to a damage deposit. Damage deposits are equal to 50% of the rental up to $500 and are due when the full rental fee is paid. All extra fees incurred by the renter during the lease period will be deducted from the damage deposit. Is that clear and makes sense? There, we could take out that first sentence and just say damage deposits are equal to 50%. So you've got a $30 rental, you pay $15 damage deposit. It's your rental and you get your $15 back. I'm not sure if that's worth our
Yeah.
money and time
Yeah, I agree.
Process.
to process it exactly. So I figured if we put $100 minimum.
Yep.
They're probably in a bigger room with bigger space and bigger needs. Extra fees may include, but are not limited to, additional maintenance required to handle insufficient cleaning and debris left in the room, repair or replacement of any damage, excessive noise or false alarms caused by the renter or their guests, rental charges for use outside of the rental agreement, and labor costs incurred due to the renter. Oh, here we go. If the rental is canceled by the renter with a minimum of 30 days of advance notice, the first day of the rental period, refunds will be given, 15% of the full rental fee for administrative costs. Refunds are not available for cancellations with notice of less than 30 days for the first day of the rental. So there is some cross times here, 30 days, and community groups who have 14 days to pay. Like technically, they could just leave their deposit until the 14th day and not have canceled. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure if we want to go with 30 days, if it's or if it's based on. It feels confusing to base it on the category type now.
Yeah.
So here's a scenario. I don't know if this would happen, but it's a private or commercial group that wants to come in and pre-book, pay their damage deposit, and then cancel at the last minute and be like, I don't care if I lost that money. And then we're left with this space that can't be used. That's my scenario, I guess. And I don't know how that all works in all this.
Yeah, so that's why I'm wondering if 30 days is enough, is too much,
I think
is.
30 days is a good thing for finding other bookings. I think if you go 14 days, it can be a scramble, right? And it also depends on the mechanism you're letting people know. It's about managing it. So you can have someone who's requested it, it's not available, and then somebody cancels. And so you're going to then call that person and say, it's available now, right?
Right, so you have a booking manager.
So that's. So
Yeah,
14 days is making an urgency to all that process.
so leaving it 30 days makes sense for all groups, I guess,
I think so.
if we're gaming it out.
Because usually you get cancellations for two reasons. One is the capacity of the organization to do the event that they said they're going to do, which is like a one-off or something like that. And that's good knowledge. So we have people who regularly book and cancel, book and cancel, book and cancel. You just know that that's what's going to happen with them. And the other thing is an act of God, something that has been unanticipated, that has thrown a monkey wrench into the whole thing, and that doesn't happen nearly as often. But God, even if you don't believe in God, it's still an act of God. Force majeure. Yes, force majeure.
All right, we're running behind, so let's.
Leave it at 30 days unless there's other.
Judy?
Well, do we have to deal with the conflict between community groups having the 14 days for the full rental fee as opposed to 30 days for cancellation?
So that's what I was trying to game out. So
Yeah.
essentially what would happen is that if a community group left the deposit, 30 days passes, at 14 days, they're like, or they cancel after 30 days, they just don't get their deposit back,
You just don't get the deposit.
right?
Yeah.
According to this?
Yeah.
And then if they did cancel, they would get their deposit minus 50%. If they did put the full money down, they would get their minus 15%. Think.
Okay, so we end up with the deposit, but not the full fee less than 15%. Okay, and that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I know, I just wanted to say I think it's sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Flex room, community moon, community conference, fitness studio, living room, courtyard. Minimum rent period is 2 hours with the option to add additional time in 1 hour increments unless it's 30 days, where the minimum can go down to 1. Also, deposits and refunds are the same, except for if the rental is canceled by the renter more than 14 days for the first day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or do we want to make the smaller rooms, the non-theater rooms, have a different cancellation policy, or have them be the same? 30 days.
My instinct is to make it the same to begin with. Just so it's easier for everybody to understand.
I think so too.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, your admin work goes
Yeah.
double that way, right? So.
Think anything else has changed?
I have a concern about that. I think it's a good practice, probably. But in our community, if you're teaching a yoga class that's an hour and a half and you have to book 2 hours, you're gonna find out if you have sufficient enrollment about 3.5 days ahead of time if you're lucky.
Mhm.
So, and community rec would get to cancel the class 2 days, 3 days before and not get dinged, whereas a renter would be out that full amount. It's an interesting concern for those who are trying to be a renter for instruction.
Makes sense.
I guess I wonder how often will that room actually be available for
Right.
outside rentals?
That's a good question, but how about if we address it this way? That, you know what, let's say you book it every day, every Tuesday for 12 weeks, because you're planning to run that yoga class. And you put the 25% deposit down on that full 12 months. But if you have to cancel the class 3 days before, maybe you are only losing for the first, the classes that are within 14 days, rather than the whole 12-week book series.
Yeah.
So that gives the facility booking people 14 days to try and scramble and put something else in
I think
place.
that would be inherent in that booking.
Okay.
I think it's the day, right? So if you booked a week, the clause is for each booking, not as a block booking. Do you know what I mean? So particularly for events that you've got going on like that. So
That's quite a lot of management.
Yeah.
Doing.
well, but that's the nature of managing the space is when someone makes a booking, you can't say a block booking of like every week is one booking and therefore you have to confirm and pay for a whole year of bookings 30 days before the first one starts. That's not going to work.
But the expectation would be that that space is held for them regardless.
Yes, but
So-
it's
and
a
they wouldn't
rolling-
be
it's-
wanting-
But it's got to roll by.
It's a
14
rolling
days.
thing. We have that. People pay each month for the space that they book for that month. It's not more management. It's just a rolling way of operating. It's like that day that it's being booked and 30 days before that, there are a series of like small bookings, right? That they've done. So you can cover it by a contract, but you can't have somebody book a year of weeks and expect them to come up with all the money 30 days before the first week starts for an entire year.
Being devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Is it reasonable to expect to have a space held for you without paying for that duration?
It's still on a rolling thing. It's held each part of the time. And I guess it's a question to the philosophy of the space. But you're right, Gail, if the municipality gets to do it, because you get to do that as a municipality as the first category, do you want other user groups to run that kind of programming in your space? You know, in competition, like, or other people who are not through the municipality doing those kind of recreation activities. If you do, you have to have a policy that makes it, like, it can operate like that.
And a person renting that space hasn't really had a venue up until now to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have had to run through rec to book a series of classes or whatever. And I think it's a good customer. I think it's potentially good customer. But I see what you're saying about, block booking all that space. But I think you may end up with more inquiries. Yeah, it sounds like they're individual, it's a month contract then, so it isn't repeated. It's a new agreement made all the time if they're not
We do one
paying.
agreement that covers it, but the cancellation policy is a rolling one because it's applied to the date they're going to use it, not to the contract. So it's one contract that outlines it, but the 30 days is before the date they're going to use it. So if we've got it using it every Thursday for like 9 months, they can cancel 30 days before the next event, right? Not like the entire thing. It's not treated as a 1-year contract. That's not manageable, right? So it's a kind of a rolling, does that make sense about how it rolls through it? But you can still put it in one contract.
Unless it's a series and then
Yeah.
that person pays for the whole series.
That's what Jillian said. Him is,
It's the same thing, like you're talking a series of,
that the patrons pay for 3 months of classes at the beginning. So
Right.
maybe the renter could pay their 3 months of rental.
Yeah.
If they have sufficient.
It's like spin class, you sign up for 6 weeks.
But I don't think that's what we thought.
No.
That would be an agreement between the patrons and the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they would be able to pay ahead of time because they'll have potentially filled that up.
it actually gets to it gets a little bit to what the purpose, like what you're looking for, what business you're wanting to attract into the rooms, right? And if you're wanting to attract one-offs, then you're absolutely right, Jillian. You keep it that way because it'll discourage people from making those long-term bookings and setting that up because it's cumbersome and tricky. So that's a question that I think does fit into where, and it's usually recreation, to be honest. It's recreation classes, not necessarily physical recreation, but those kinds of activities. And I can't answer that because I don't know like how much of that's being handled by Bow and Rec and how much outside activity there would be. Because what it would do is it encourage me to go to Bow and Rec to get it set up, right, through the other booking system. Because then you would have your policies in relationship to how you hire teachers and how you run your classes. So if you go the other way, it's encouraging people to go around that system. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I just don't know what to put in here now.
No, I think I think this is one of those things we're gonna have to come back and look on as we progress and see how this rolls.
I think we're trying to give this to council to approve, and I think we should improve it for the first 6 months of operations, and it can be re-looked at for January.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a really, really good job. And you know, a lot of new users are gonna try and use this space, so they're gonna say, oh my God, you know, I really wanted to try like a play class. And it, you know, ideally I would have it from September until December. But if that Bowen group needs me to pay from September to December right off the bat, I maybe can't do that, but I can book from September to December with the intention of running a 3-month class. And if they don't have good enrollment, they actually have to pay for the first month of that booking because we need a 30-day period to turn that space around for 30 days from now. Let's just try it.
yeah.
We can't figure everything out right now, so let's keep going.
And I think we work it into, you're right, this is a 6-month trial.
Yeah, people are gonna try and figure out how they can use this space effectively.
Yeah.
We want them to.
We don't want to stop it.
And for the purpose of today, we have an hour and 15
Yeah.
minutes left. We have a lot to go through. So let's keep rolling.
So I think that's everything for this document. Anything else that has changed?
Judy?
Well, for 11 and 12, we're talking about, those are the list of things that we looked at when we were making the definitions. So I don't think they need to be part of this at all.
Sorry, page 11 and 12.
11 and 12. We're talking about, other facilities have described community groups and yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, because they,
So we can take all of that out because we put community groups as we want it in the definition.
Right.
Okay.
There's a little recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe Council Morris wants to include the word principles in there, approve of the print and the content and principle.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready? That the community center joint management committee approve the contents of the
In
draft rental
principle.
process in principle as presented and amended. It's June 25th, 2024 meeting. Execution of the rental policy.
Mimi second, or thanks.
Okay, all in favor? Ready? Did we get everybody there? Not quite.
Those opposed, if they don't say it.
Those opposed?
Okay, I got it.
Okay, moving along to rental
Thank you for
policy.
the vote in favor.
Thanks, Lee, again for this one.
Okay, rental policy. Okay, so I have started porting things over from the rental procedure into the rental policy, so we can stick through to that. I don't know that. So, would it be worth us reading this too, or is there more, do you have questions specifically about this document, or anybody else, any other input on this document? Or I can just go over the changes that are.
You read it through us.
Read it through and we
So the user categories and privileges that are described on page 13, for instance, and the regular policy, that's exactly the same as what we've just been through. Except it's using the word priority.
Yeah, so that's it,
Okay.
that procedure stuff will.
Yeah,
all come
They've just cut and
into this
pasted.
policy.
Okay,
And it will go to the 3 months.
And I will change the.
so all
agreement
the
thing.
changes that we just made,
And,
yeah. Plot it in.
Slot it in.
Okay.
I've sort of changed some of the layout, but like. So it fits into the document a little bit better. I will change those details there. And deposit.
So then we're up to page 16, all spaces and use of spaces.
In the event of emergency, or for health and safety reasons, this one Fraser was asking about, cancellations may be considered. PIC reserves the right to cancel for those same reasons with full refund. I think all this is pretty forward already, I think, isn't it, for the most part?
It's, I think what this,
There's a
CMC's been through this 2 or 3 times, but I think for the, any newcomers. it's
Yeah.
All new.
So that's why I'd like to read. Okay, so one change was due to the fire and rescue services bylaw that went through yesterday. I added in the help of Councilor Getty, any open flames or explosions or pyrotechnics inside or outside the VICC shall require notification to and approval by the facility manager and possibly the Bowen Island Fire Chief. May require the renter to supply additional fire prevention equipment and or insurance cross reference to fire and rescue services bylaw 60B 2024, section 7.12 to 7.15. B3, right?
Yep. All four.
Would you like to include the word barbecues, because there might be events that have barbecues outside as well?
So we, yeah,
Be specific.
yeah, you would need it for, you would need.
But that's an open flame, right?
Yeah,
Any open flame is a barbecue.
Okay.
Gas barbecue is an
yeah,
open
and the
flame.
facility, we always had it that the facility manager would know, but it could,
Not a
al-
barbecue,
it
that's right.
it could also involve the fire chief if there's anything wild and wonderful.
So, yeah, barbecue is an open flame.
I'm just thinking of other things that we'd have to list, right?
Yeah.
Because there's different things that have open flames beside heaters, portable heaters, anything with an open flame. I think you're capturing it with an open flame.
Another one that I found on website, under no circumstances, I don't know if we need this. It makes sense. Under no circumstances is the renter allowed to handle the in-house equipment, including lighting, sound, and video equipment. Approved technician must operate all lighting, sound, and video belonging to the VICC.
Yes, I think it's a good thing to have in there.
And we can say whoever that.
Yeah, exactly.
That renter may be an approved technician as well too,
But it's just so that people aren't running and playing with the lights.
Yeah.
Can I ask, would that include the retractable seating? Do you need a technician on staff?
Yes, yeah.
Then you should put that.
You only get to the.
And you may want to put in the drapery as well, Lee.
Great.
Storage and like the.
And the cherry picker.
And the cherry picker.
And the piano. Should probably start mentioning the piano in all this.
There's something wrong with that spelling in that one.
So sorry, that's meaning that somebody just can't go up and start playing the piano for 5 minutes
It
before.
will have cover over it.
Have cover over it, yeah.
That's been fun. Was there something in an earlier document that with instruction from the facility manager that they could use some of these?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean by like, if we can make people approved by just the
Yeah.
instruction.
It was written in an earlier document,
Yeah,
it was quite a while ago.
But I don't think it needs to be in this document. I think you've captured it, Lee, by you approving.
I can't
Yeah.
remember where it was, but I remember seeing it.
So the process of how you get it, become approved as a technician probably doesn't need to be.
No, it
in
doesn't need to be.
the policy.
Yeah.
But there will be a process that's clear.
Yeah.
What approves the technician.
Mimi?
Does the lighting mean stage lighting in specific?
Yeah. I stage.
That be,
So I'm curious about the piano.
Well, you've also got like video, you've got like audio, video.
Yeah, it's a certain.
I
Are you
mean,
talking about moving the piano or playing the piano? You don't
Probably,
need, an approved technician isn't a pianist.
I'm with
No, not playing, it's moving the piano,
it's moving it.
unlocking the piano for use. It's all considered property, I think.
yeah, so is that captured under like to handle in-house equipment, or do we need a different word?
Well, I don't know, that was,
Jillian?
I think it's okay to leave it because an approved technician, like if Lee is unlocking or moving the piano or one of us are, I think.
well, I didn't know what you meant by handle, I guess.
Yeah,
That's why.
It's just be moving it from the
That's what I
living
mean,
room
is it
into the
need to-
theater. Yeah. I think it's okay.
It's like a
Stage.
strong version of touch.
Yeah, stage drapery.
You can touch it. with
Piano,
your
the only
hand.
musical instrument we have,
Yeah.
one of Wurlitz's or organ.
Everybody's trying to get covered, yeah. Yeah. but-
Okay, we're rolling through this one. This is good.
No changes to access and security. Code of conduct. I did add the policy, maybe updated or revised at discretion of the municipality, make sure that it remains current and effective in meeting the needs of our community. Sense. References. I think that's it, other than the changes from the rent process that you just went through, which I can. Yeah, happen by tomorrow. So be. Anything about it?
All right, any other comments or notes about that before we move to recommendation?
So your recommendation to me would be better to say, rather than will be included in the package of policies, just say be forwarded to council for approval.
This matches, we've done a few of these in previous meetings,
Oh, okay.
so it's identical wording to the other ones. We should have invited you to a previous meeting.
Personally, I'm not too worried about how the wording is, so long as the same thing comes out of it. I.e. council looks at it and gives us a yay or nay. Thoughts? So do I have anybody to move this recommendation? The Community Center Joint Management Committee agree that the draft rental policy is presented and amended at its June 25th, 2024 meeting be included in the package of policies for the facility to be provided to council for approval.
Mimi moved it,
Thank you, Mimi.
seconded by Gail.
Gail. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Privacy policy, Steph. Thank you.
So the excellent privacy policy that we brought to the last meeting, we actually already have a privacy policy in play that supports our privacy and freedom of information bylaw. Hasn't been adopted yet, but it's in process. So because that exists and that's the overarching policy for the organization, not just for the building, we're going to rescind our last month's recommendation for this policy because it's going to be subsumed in the other one.
I'm just gonna keep it for my house.
Should I? Yeah. For your internet.
Little did you know after all that.
Okay, so have you double checked to make sure that there's no conflicts or anomalies or?
Nope, but I know that we can't do a privacy policy for a building, it has to be for an organization. So if we're gonna be changing anything, it's gonna be on that document, this, not this one.
Right.
But thank you, sorry.
I think there was a whole lot of information that would come into bookings and that would be distinct to this organization. And all the activities that we're gonna be doing and selling tickets and trying to sign people up for whatever. So if that is in the overreaching over the umbrella policy, that was the issue.
Sorry, I believe when we had our conversation with CO, she said that part right there. Yeah.
She was like, I need
Yeah,
that to put in the other one.
Yeah. So I
But if
believe
you
it
wanna
was
put,
that, yeah. Sorry.
Trust.
or yeah, do you wanna put something like,
No, that's fine.
okay,
As long as that's
we should keep an eye on that,
paying attention.
staff level.
Well, this one's nice and easy. All right, recommendation, whereas there is a draft policy entitled Access to Information and Protection of Privacy being processed by the Bowen Island municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that the Community Center Joint Management Committee rescind the resolution made on June 11th, 2024, recommending adoption of a privacy policy unique to this facility. Go ahead, moving. Judy, Chancellor Getty.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
And this, sorry, next one, I should have put Kristen's name on it. I was, my fingers just like Jillian. But it's actually Kristen.
Okay, next up, community center rental rates bylaw and rate sheet. Kristen.
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
Now it's up to you.
It's in our format that we require,
Okay.
in order to have council approve the rates, they need to do it by bylaw, so this has been put into bylaw, it's bylaw number 662. I just took the rates that were provided to me and agreed to by the committee, so they're in there. I took out the reference to the 4-hour minimums that I don't think needs to be in the bylaw, that should be in policy. We can just amend this bylaw as it goes along, as we get new ideas about things that we should be renting in there, equipment rentals, that kind of thing. So it's easy just as a standalone bylaw and it can be easily amended with just 2 meetings of council. And then the last thing that I added to this bylaw is just a provision that council can, or subject to an approved council policy, that the rates could be discounted or waived. So that would need to be set out in the bylaw that you can discount a rate or waive a rate. But it, of course, is gonna need to be subject to approved council policy. So that's another piece of work that's floating out there that we're going to have to do before we would be able to discount or waive the fees.
I have a question. Just the 4-hour booking.
Yeah.
It would probably be helpful if it was noted at the bottom so that they would. See, I'm sorry, who was looking at this, but understand that it's a 4-hour rate.
I don't think people will be going to this to
No.
be looking at the rates. We'll do our own rate sheets. This is just the legislative framework that needs to be done and passed in the background. We'll do much nicer rates that are more easily consumable by the public. We can add those policies on it. This is simply just kind of a housekeeping piece that needs to be done in the background.
Can we put a little note on the bottom of that to that effect? That this is not the published rate sheet, that's gonna be subject to other,
I could put it in the report to council.
just
Like
because if there's
nobody's-
2 documents floating around, somebody's gonna be saying, you know. I looked it up and this is what's attached to the bylaw. What are you doing? with this?
Yeah, I'm hesitant, I'm hesitant to recommend putting anything more on the bylaw, because if you wanna change it, then you gotta go back to council again, so. I'm a fan of putting the minimum amount in the bylaw that needs to be there in order to charge a fee.
Just want the rate.
I would recommend just put the rates and use those public facing rate sheet documents to convey all of that additional information.
Okay, but if there's just a little note at the bottom saying there is a rate sheet. This, so for the bylaw, in this is for the bylaw, there is a rate sheet.
Yeah.
Something that just, don't go arguing with us about this.
It's pretty clear, it says hourly.
Sorry?
It says hourly on there. And all the other things, policies are not rates.
Right.
I'm totally agreeing with Kristen.
Good. I'm asking if you could just put a little note on the.
No, it's not a bylaw, like. Yeah, I'm afraid it's not bylaw language, that's.
I'll bring it up again later.
Neil, did your issue get addressed in this sheet? So this would be the time now to amend it, right?
I wrote an email morning or last night, trying to understand why we put the theater partial theater rental at 25. I don't remember that being discussed at last week's meeting. And it's an interesting problem in that it's lower than the use of the flex room, the fitness studio, and the community conference room. So basically what it's doing is it's encouraging the use of an otherwise used space in a way that we really don't want to encourage. It should be a viable option, not a preferred option. So I was suggesting that though it needs to be less than the theater cost for a non-performance rental, which is currently $35, though it needs to be less, I think it'd be sufficiently less at $30. And not jump down to 25, where we are, it becomes preferential pricing. That's my order.
Yeah.
Maybe using
Agreed
a
with
big
that.
space when they really could just be using a small space.
Yeah, or they would
$5
be booking something they don't even want, but because it's cheaper, they would go to it
Yeah.
because it's cheap.
I think it's a good catch. I agree with that, moving it up to 30.
Okay, just one second here, Jillian.
I think it's a good catch, absolutely, but just want everybody to remember that renting a theater partial is only an option when there is an existing stage hold
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. I think we know that, but
Yeah.
it's still.
And why do we want to drive the traffic there by pricing it lower? That would be my only question. Is there a benefit, or keeping it at 30, then we would be natural for someone to say, and we would encourage you to use our flex room, which is a beautiful room, and it would be priced at the same as the partial theater, 30 rather than 25.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. In fact, I think we would wanna price it in a way to dissuade people from using that space, because as you said, it's a theater hall, so there's already stuff in there. You wouldn't actually, it would be your last resort place to put people. And I mean, I could even see it being $50 an hour. It's a huge space too. Like, I could see it being $50 an hour. Same as the rehearsal price, like it's just.
I was
The whole
gonna,
line all the way across that needs to be changed.
Yeah, but it's all based on that original.
Sorry, Liam, go ahead.
I was gonna suggest too, that it feels we're being very generous with the rates here across the board. Maybe that's a good place to be starting out. But I often feel like it's easier to lower your socks than raise them. And for commercial, what we call like off island. To me, $250 an hour for that theater at the performance level use of that theater, to me seems like a good deal. And then just, I also wonder, am I missing the living room and the patio? Because I would think the patio would be a popular rental space too.
So we had this discussion last time about that? And how do you have it as an add-on or otherwise? Where were the notes from that section?
Well, I could see the living room and patio being an add-on, but it could also be, see each one of those being a separate thing, like, oh, I wanna have a barbecue party. Patio.
Well, how do you rent the living room and then allow access into all the other rooms?
Yeah, that was the problem is,
Rental was
Right,
meant
right,
exclusive, so
right.
it's problematic.
Right.
Same thing with patio was exclusive, right? So that was problematic.
I guess they could rent the whole facility.
That's what they do that right now.
Or you're renting it and you just know that the public are still gonna.
These rental, then you have to put notes on this. These rental things are based on exclusive use.
Right.
So the understanding is that when you rent, and there may be another way of doing that, but I think it might be for this, where we are right now, it's good just to start it
Okay.
and see what happens. The commercial rates were just based on the formula, Leah. Basically, we did all our work on sort of where the community rates were, what would happen in the community, and had a good analysis of that. And then we just used a formula, understanding that we might be low on that. But the approach was a formulaic approach, so it was clear. So rather than a market approach, looking at what the commercial market was.
I did a very rough estimate, forecast of the use and revenue generation. And I have no idea about the use numbers, I was just making it up.
Right.
And, with these, the rates that I initially was just sort of coming up in my head, we were to generate $250,000 a year. And these rates, it drops to 154.
Right. What we don't know is like how much you want to encourage commercial traffic, like that's that balance. So-
Right, I wasn't changing the actual
Yeah.
use, it was the rates.
Yeah, but I mean the number of hours, right?
That's what I mean, I wasn't changing the hours.
From Kirsten's list, you mean, from what Kirsten proposed? Because Kirsten proposed a number of hours per year that we looked at in her document.
Oh, okay.
So we're looking at that, which was the number of hours per use, kind of for each, within the category. So that's where you're going, you can raise it, but then you're really.
I wouldn't change I wouldn't change the duration of use, I'd change the rate.
But I mean, duration is how many times it gets booked in a year.
I know.
But we don't know that.
sorry, Mimi?
We're guessing.
Just as a little bit of feedback in terms of the rate for off-island users. In terms of some research I've been doing and fielding some calls in terms of producers that might want to produce live music or all other kinds of events. Their concern is overnight accommodations and off-island ferries after the events. So a fair rate, a less expensive rate than Vancouver or Squamish or other areas will be very attractive to them. More expensive rates and needing to find accommodations for their performers and for their audiences and dealing with ferries, it's another deal.
But we don't want like off-island producers renting our venue and putting on shows, competing with the Heart, right? We want all that traffic to go through the Heart, go through locally. What we do want are off-island people who are doing conventions,
I don't know that.
concerts. Well, I work in the business and you do not want like off-island, we do not let producers come in and rent our theater and produce theater in our theater because that's what we do. We partner with them because we have access to the audience. So are you setting this performing arts center up as like a roadhouse that anybody can book to put on any show they want to get money out of the community? Or are you building it for the community so that you can have events going on to serve the people within the community?
But at Presentation House, you've got a much bigger local performance group than, I mean, I don't think with the number of groups we have here that do
Yeah.
performances, that we would be able to fill that hall any more than maybe 3 months or 4 months. So we want to encourage the off-island groups, the Vancouver Symphony off group to come.
They will come, but they would come through, or you're thinking they're just gonna rent the space, set up their shingle here, advertise and see if they can
Well,
get people to
they
come.
might, if it's people that have a Bowen connection, might, you know.
Okay,
I don't think we want to discount the possibility that somebody would want to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and make some revenue. But again, we've got the mechanisms in place in the rental policy that it's still priority
Right.
for the local
Yeah.
groups over.
Okay,
those
so then
commercial ones.
maybe you're right, then you want to keep the rates lower, because if you do raise them, then you're going to be discouraged from doing that because of all the other costs they incur.
So, what about Liam's question about renting the living room? I mean, if you don't have a rate for the living room. And if somebody wanted to rent the whole facility.
Yep.
So.
There's an add-on, there's a.
Where's that rate in here?
Do we have that from last meeting?
I thought we had the
I just feel like it hasn't been included in, but we did talk about, okay, if you're running a play at the theater and then somebody's booked the exclusive use of the living room and then everybody files out for an intermission and things like that, it gets difficult, so.
Well,
we were
I'm
considering
saying
this
you
add-on,
could-
but-
But if you wanted to rent and have a big, like a conference or something.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna want the theater, you're gonna want the living room, you're gonna want the flex room.
The patio.
And maybe the patio, though, depending on the time of year. So what's the rate for the living room if somebody wants to do that?
No, we did have something last.
Jillian, wasn't it on there? or-
I thought it was, but I'm sorry, my computer's just died, so I can't look it up.
Or do you have a
Probably,
copy
but
for
I
the
don't-
whole facility, including living room or something? Or-
Well, we did have those, you did it, Jillian, you did that work. You had
We
those-
actually never gave it a price. We balked at giving it a price, but we did have the discussion that the group decided doing both of those spaces, the living room and the patio, and not addressing yet Councillor North's comment about the entire facility. We actually never discussed a price for that yet. But we did discuss the living room and the patio as only an add-on, because none of us could understand how we would be able to privatize that rental. I personally think the patio, it's possible. I think the living room, it's impossible.
But if you rented if you were wanting to have a big party where you're gonna have a sit-down dinner for 250 people in the theater, you're gonna want the living room
That would be
for
the
your
add-on.
pre-dinner drinks, but you
Exactly.
haven't got that rate.
You know,
in there.
exactly, we are agreeing. We did understand that we should probably put it as a add-on at an expense that can't be singly rented, but could add on rent. But what the group decided was living room and patio both lived in that universe of only add-ons.
Yeah.
I do think that we
But if-
should open that discussion around the patio once more. And the entire facility, we actually never addressed what that cost would be.
Well, I was thinking, like, if you were doing a big banquet, you'd probably want the flex room for setting up your meals and serving and stuff from. So how does somebody do that kind
They
of?
would just rent each space, right?
Well, you haven't got a space for the rent for the living room.
Well, I know, well, we're going to address that, though. We're going to put
I
that.
see that as an oversight.
We
agree.
Can we just do it now?
Sure.
Sure.
But if you're gonna get this bylaw passed,
Yeah,
you want it,
that's
then you've gotta throw it in
We're
now.
talking about adding it right now.
Yeah, I'm putting it in the resolution, right, as we.
So-
Ready?
Let's.
Have we agreed on theater partial rental is not 25, it's something else?
Yes. The proposal was 30 and there was 50. I'm kind of leaning towards the 30.
Yeah, it's the line underneath for flex room, you want exactly the same
Yeah, I
numbers
thought it was
all the way across for theater partial.
Yeah.
And but just to discuss this before we just put a number down. I mean, I think Kristen made a really good point, and that is that we might be dropping the non-performance rental just a hair too low from 50, and Liam is shaking, yes. Dropping from 50 to 35 is a big drop when we're looking at the small multipurpose room being a $30 rental. And you're tripling the size and you're giving it away for 35. I mean, we could consider a non-performance rental being 40 and then the stage hold being 35. Like, I'm not saying what it should be, but I don't think we should just stick a number in. I think this needs a conversation and then we can get to the add-ons.
Quick question for clarification. So for the theater, it's a minimum 4-hour booking, is that correct?
Up until a month ahead or
Right,
whatever
right.
that.
So 4 hours. For the flex room, is there minimum 2
2
hours?
hours.
So that's where you might,
Oh, that was the argument.
that's where you
from
might
Kim.
garner the difference, right?
That's where.
But I
Kim
still
was
think it's
at.
low.
Yeah.
I think it should go up. But I don't,
Yeah.
like if I'm a model airplane club, you know, I wanna rent a room for a couple hours, I'm not gonna probably go for the larger room because I have to pay for 4 hours. Even though. But if you're going for a 4 hour booking, I'm gonna go for that bigger room, like, oh yeah, same price, or like an extra $20, yeah, I'll take that monster room. over that Small. So I do think it should go up.
So we've proposed somewhere between 30 and 50. So Gail was saying 40.
I don't know, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, I'd like to discuss it.
This is gonna be for 6 months. Like, I think it's hard like to go exactly, but I agree with, we put a number in it and then see how it works and then we review it within 6 months.
But
See
Lean's
where the
also
traffic
right, I
goes.
think that it's easier to drop the rates than lower than raise.
But then you have people who look at the initial rates and don't engage.
Yeah,
They don't book it. They'll stay at Collins Hall, they'll stay at other places.
yeah, that was gonna be my other question. I don't know how
This
these
was meant to encourage people
rates.
to start using it. And then once we understand that they're paying for it through their taxes, paying it in other ways, we raise them.
I mean, does Collins Hall, are they oversubscribed? Like, I don't know that we want Collins Halls steal their business either.
Well, that's why we tried to work it in such a way that some of the business would stay there for like rehearsals and things like that. And we're encouraging people to use it for performance. And also, like, we tried to take into consideration without taking away their business, but what the capacity is of the groups are, but we are just guessing. So I really support Gail's idea, like, we put this out for 6 months and then review it, right? And see like how much traffic there is. So does someone want to make a proposal for what we're doing for the for the stage hold? I mean, the
Theater partial.
Yeah, theater partial. I'm kind of leaning with Gail at the 40. I know it seems arbitrary, but it isn't in my view. It's going to be times 4, so it's $160 to use that room.
But then you've got theater non-performance $35.
Yeah, that based on a 4-hour call, right?
That's the one you meant?
Yeah, I think that's the one that, Kim, you said the partial, we didn't mean that,
Yeah.
Non-performance rental at the theater.
The partial should be the same rate as flex room. Because partial theater is probably about the same size as flex room.
No, it's actually. The other thing about the theater partial is going to take management, because even though you say you use it, you're not allowed to touch anything. You just got a soft piece of fabric in there between the two things, and people are gonna have to keep an eye on that. So that does take more administration. So it makes sense for there to be a little bit more cost in that. Lee, I'm curious about what your opinion is on this. You're the boots on the ground.
I don't know, I do think the rates are low, but I also think we need to encourage the community to learn how to use the building.
Right. So I think before we go rates low or high, just comparatively within the rates that we have, what would you set it at? Like, because you knowing that higher rates discourage use, lower rates encourage.
Non-performance rental?
No, just the non-performance rental, theater space. And the partial hold. Those 2 months.
I think you're mixing up the term.
Oh, well, sort of theater partial, which is non-performance, the 2 non-performance rentals of a large space.
Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yes, he's provided them.
Okay,
Yeah,
So why don't we make those two the same?
yeah, that's what
So
I'm
if it's
proposing.
the theater non-performance rental and the theater partial.
Yeah.
That those are both 35.
I feel that the full theater should be significantly higher than the theater partial.
Which one are you referring to?
Oh, you're talking about 35 for
The theater non-performance rental that's currently at 35.
Yeah.
I think that is very low. And the theater partial should be lower than that because it is only half the space.
So then maybe when it's, so 40 and 40 or 40 and 35,
And then 30, 30, 30.
30, 30, 30.
Is 40 still low?
I guess what I want to do is before we unwind all the work that we've done, I'm looking at it as a ratio thing. Where they sit in terms of the ratios with each other. And then there's a conversation about whether these rates are too low, right? Rather than going back to each one going, this one's too low. And it's outside, we wreck our ratio thing, right? because then it's easier to go at it.
When you're talking about ratio, you're saying partial is 50% of a regular rate and
Exactly,
that
but
is
how
all.
they fit
Yeah.
within looking at each other. So I made a note of theater non-performance rental would be $40. Theater partial rental was something that would be $35 based on the notion it's gonna be a 4-hour minimum.
And then you gotta go all the way across.
Then you go all the way across and adjust them as up as, so
Yeah.
that's right. So
So just a heads up, we've got 40 minutes left.
And I want to ask one more question. Your second column is headed up private and off-island community groups. Are you not just meaning private and off-island group?
community means like the not-for-profit that comes from off island.
Well, then you put a not-for-profit because community implies both.
Sure.
Yeah,
But you said private and off-island.
And off island, not for profit.
I would like to add something here as well too. If we could
Yes, you know.
change some of the headings so that they mirror for daily and local. So for example, local, commercial, local, commercial, hourly versus daily. There's a little bit of a
Yeah.
discrepancy between the two of them there. Same with the private and off island or private or off island.
Right.
We just make those the same meaning.
Most venues post whether the renter will need to have their own insurance or whether the insurance is included in the rates as well.
This isn't for this document though. This is going to council. That'll be on the website.
It's in the policy, yeah, 5 million.
Okay, the idea is for this to go to the July council meeting?
Yes,
We don't.
yes, that's why we have to stay here. I know. I know.
So can I are we in agreement to just for the sake of moving forward?
So I just want to make sure Gail and Kristen are in on this conversation here as well too. Okay, so Kim, can you just say what you said
Yeah, I
there?
was just proposing that the theater non-performance rental go from $35 up to $40. And the theater partial non-performance rental go from $25 to $35. That's my proposal.
Does anybody have any concerns, questions, comments?
And what are you gonna put down for living room as add-on to theater?
And Jillian might add, that's another option amendment, but you're gonna speak to this one.
No, I'm just not sure I'm completely following your logic in the ratio between the theater and the theater partial. Like a $5 difference there.
Yeah, but at this point is because the theater rental is actually the whole non-performance is the whole space. And the partials.
Right, that's why I would have thought it's more of a $5 value of difference.
A difference, right? Well, I'm happy to, like, whether we bump one up or take one down. Like, do you want to make it 30 and 40 or 35 and 45? I just don't want to get into like having to go through all the other rates.
Sorry, Gail?
How much space in the large multipurpose room is behind the traveler? Is it a quarter?
It's almost half.
About half, yeah, divides the room in half. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm
That's
questioning
why you're
that.
questioning.
Yeah.
Got it.
It still costs the same to keep the lights on. and
Yeah, it does. It's like the size of the room and
change.
As well, the square footage, the meter squared of the large multipurpose room is 258.20. And the size of the flex room is 83 square. So if you take half of 253, you're at 125, you still are 50% larger room than the flex room.
but the theater partial also has restrictions on it. It's half the room, and it's also not encouraging necessarily for that use because you can't, for example, have a lot of like, say, floor hockey sports or something.
What I'm saying is for $5 more, you're 50% more space in front of the traveler. You're getting a very nice, you're getting a very large space for $35. But you have to pay for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Unless it's within 30 days. So it you're still at $35, you're taking in $140 on that booking, no matter what. Whether they use it for an hour or, well, nobody's gonna book it for an hour. For 4. But it's still, it's a good price, right?
How do you divide the theater and
With the curtain.
you're gonna have a second curtain?
No, there is.
No, the traveler curtain.
The traveler goes in and it divides it into half.
Is anyone explaining?
Sorry, just one second here. So Judy's had her hand up for a bit.
We're gonna have to, I think we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna have to sort out, what we're going to present. Get this document finished and what we're gonna present to people and continuing conversations. So, you know, I think once we're in the space and we see what it is and we see how people are reacting to potential bookings, then, you know, we can start adjusting. It's like if everybody comes in and says, "Oh, that's a great deal," I'm not touching that one, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And we can keep track and, you know. But I think in terms of getting through this so that we get something in place before the place opens.
Living room, patio, let's go.
Patio whole facility, I got 3 spots here in yellow. Let's go.
I just sent you the actual worksheet, if you wanna share it, then people can see what the impact of those changes are across.
Oh no, I gotta do Excel, okay. I should, the same one I have in my agenda.
No, it's a,
New one.
it's just in the email, it's the attachment to the email, and it's a live document, so it updated the rates going across.
Okay.
When I made the change to the 40 and then, okay.
So are we going to address if somebody wants to rent the whole
Yeah.
facility?
Yeah.
I know we've had this, I mean, the whole facility.
So, well, they just add all the room rates together.
Yeah, okay. And we've already built in there, the council has the right to waive or reduce these so that
Yeah.
if they say, hey, we're running the whole space, give us a feel.
It's more than all the room rates though. Well, because you're basically, by doing that, you're consuming the whole facility.
Oh, not the gym and the weight room, and I'm just talking, to me, I can see somebody wanting to rent the flex room, the living room, and the theater. Maybe the patio, depending on the time of year.
But we talked about this last time, that if it's a film crew that comes in, they don't want someone in the gym. And would the person in the gym really want to be part of like the whole film crew?
Oh, I thought there was a door where you could shut the gym off and only enter from the back.
Well, probably do we just go on? Do you want to offer a fitness class while there's a film crew in the building? I don't know.
Sorry, Liam's looking like he really needs to say something here.
Well, I think film, there can be some separate categories which we haven't tackled, and film should be on its own,
Yeah.
and it's like a monster rate.
Yeah.
It is
Very expensive.
You don't necessarily need it in the rate policy. If someone was looking
What about a wedding?
take a,
Would someone want to be in the gym when there's a wedding party going on? I don't know. Just putting that
That's the
out there.
whole facility.
Isn't there soundproofing in the gym?
I think we wouldn't want to remove that opportunity for them. We are not gonna make the decision for them that you don't want to be here because there's a wedding. Right.
Yeah.
my proposal is that these are good questions going forward, but there are other ways of getting at it. The whole facility thing can be done by just adding up all the costs right now to somebody, saying this is the cost to rent the whole thing. And if Christian's got the waiver in, a discount,
Right.
then
Yeah.
these individual things could be looked at after a year, after 6 months of operation. Not to get stuck trying to figure all the problems out in advance. But I feel that with Kristen's clause and a set rate sheet to get started with, it's a good place to start. And if council looks at it and like Liam, they go, these are too low, then there may be an adjustment at this point. But I'm recommending that we put this forward as we put it together with the addition of the patio and the living room as we had discussed to be included in the document.
So you want to say patio, living room, add-ons, so that it's clear it's not an individual.
If you could just call it the courtyard.
Yeah.
Courtyard, okay.
Yeah.
Be consistent. So we're leaving them at 25 and 35, is that what you're saying?
What? No, we changed it to.
Well, we didn't actually come up with a number.
Number on these ones, right?
Well, we need a number for the living room and the patio.
That's right. That was Jillian, that was in the original thing. Was it 25 and 35?
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure.
How big is the living room compared to the flex room?
It's slightly larger. Smaller?
It's wider, I guess, so it might be the same.
It is similar though.
And some of the rate things that I looked at, they just did bigger categories because they depend, facilities have all these different size rooms. The one that was helpful to me was North Van Rec and Culture because they represent all the spaces. So they basically made 3 categories over all of the different rec centers and all the different sizes. So naturally within that, there were some inequities, but it was a lot easier for people to look at.
Yeah.
They were just kind of going, so I would pick a number that we used already. So 30 would be, one number and 35 could be another number.
Which one's which? So 30,
So those of you who know the space better decide.
I'm thinking, I'm gonna say 35 for the courtyard, 30 for the living room. Let me see.
I like 30 for the living room, given that it is, I think it's broadly similar to the flex room.
Good. And everyone has their own opinion because their own activity. They'll like one room over another.
So if somebody's gonna do a big wedding or a big
Right.
event, they're gonna want all 3.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter which room is which because they're getting all 3. Good. So any other amendments to this?
I just want to point out that everyone's sharing the washroom. All
Yes.
these different uses. I just want to point that out.
Public space.
I get weird.
Yeah, I put that on our doc, yeah.
Sorry, Mimi?
Another way that it might get administratively heavy is that the courtyard rental, we might actually need someone to monitor the outside, especially if anyone's using barbecues or things like that. That might require another staff person.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily going to be covered in this rate sheet. That's going to be under.
There would be
Their policy.
there'd be custodial on site and also, but you're right. It's once you start blocking off spaces, you need someone to like say sorry. When they're already not private.
Specifically if there are grills being used outside.
Mhm.
Signage.
Well, I think all usage is going to have some staff facility present, like we never rent those things. So, but someone's going to.
Can I stop sharing this? Are we?
Can you just scroll, before
yeah.
you, sorry.
It's
Can you
okay.
just scroll for Julian to see the theater, what's right now on the theater and theater partial?
Performance rent. That good. I'll just put it on here.
I can't see it.
It's just not, it's not a.
What?
No.
What happened? Has it not been up the whole time?
No,
No,
there.
it was just that. It was
What's
just
happened? Okay. Everyone just calm down.
So we should change your name to staff short, not step short.
We do.
Okay, 40, 35, okay.
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 Now I can take it away again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the recommendation. The end. A little, follow that, yeah.
Okay.
Reset the whole, okay, we're gonna do just a sec. I don't know, courtyard.
Because it's a rental rate that you need for second and third readings.
Bylaw.
It's a bylaw, yeah. Yeah.
This was up.
Okay.
All our fees and charges have to be enshrined in the bylaw.
All of which,
All our fees and charges have to be enshrined in the bylaw.
figured that we probably need more later, but. This represents hundreds of hours of work. That's coming together now. Bravo.
Get ahead of yourself, Jim.
Well, come on, I'm excited.
You're definitely not.
Excited. Fantastic.
I know, but.
Hey, I don't know if you want that ending, I just put a little into this story because of.
All right.
Special.
So, Councillor Morse, would you like to take a look at the top one? change the word of private and off-island community group to nonprofit. Was that your comment? Okay, and then make the headings consistent with phrases. We can do editing there. $40 for theater non-performance rental. 35 for partial theater non-performance. 35 for the courtyard, 30 for the living room. I just put a note about, just so that 6 months from now, we're like, why didn't we do the facility? Like, just there's a little record of the thinking.
Sorry, is that 35 each for courtyard and living room?
Can you choose somebody to speak?
Okay. So let's, 35 courtyard, 30 living room
30.
as an add-on.
Both are add-ons?
Yes.
Yeah, they'd be really hard to rent separate.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got about 25 minutes here before we gotta go.
Those are the base rates, those are the community level rates, not across the board, right?
It's going to incrementally be adjusted.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Just a little bit.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
okay, I'm gonna do some editing off table on that note. Okay. And move
That's
on.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're all
okay.
on the same.
I will do that.
Thanks, maybe. Okay.
Okay, you're gonna just get this show on.
Yes, okay, can we
Mimi's
have
gonna
a,
move it. No.
Mimi, do you want to stay for just 2 seconds? So can we have a look at the writing here? So this is our motion. That the Community Center Joint Management Committee recommend that council give first, second, and third reading to the Bowen Island Municipality Community Center Rates Bylaw number 662, 2004, as presented at the June 25th meeting with
Why
the
didn't they
following.
as amended at the
amendments.
June 25th, 2024 CCJMC meeting.
Because you guys never can remember anything that happens. So now we know exactly what happened. It's there. Or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
Let's leave it. So, sorry, can you go back up here? Okay, so, changing the wording of private and off-island to community or nonprofit. Make the headings consistent, increase the non-theater performance rental to 40 per hour, increase the partial theater non-performance rental to 35 an hour, include a courtyard add-on rental of 35 an hour, include a living room add-on rental of 30 an hour, and that the rate to rent the entire facility be the sum of the rooms included and such.
Right.
And then, of course, we'll be having a note in there about the base rate. Okay, do we have anybody moving this? Mimi got her hand up first. Judy was second. All in favor? Anybody opposed?
Bye, Mimi.
Congratulations, everybody.
All right.
20 minutes left. We've got about 20 minutes worth of stuff to do here. So yes, there's a BIMTech meeting coming in at 6 and I need 15 minutes to change. Okay. Community Center Operations Package of Policies for Adoption by Council. Lead Vincent, Facility Manager.
Sorry, I'm gonna take my leave too on this. Sorry.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you, guys. This is great. Thank you.
I mean, this is kind of wrapping it all up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, I think we,
Well, let's,
the policy is just as amended, I
Yeah.
guess, and
our acceptable
do we
use.
want to go over any suggestions or questions from?
Is acceptable use, you're saying see code of conduct for user group, staff, volunteers, and visitors.
Yeah, I
Where's
don't
that?
remember when that came in, as you pointed that out earlier, so
Yeah.
does anybody remember that?
What's that? The very, the set of brackets in the last line of the first paragraph of acceptable use.
Can we just give a page number maybe to?
It's acceptable use.
I don't have a page number.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like maybe it was a note that I made that I forgot to delete, but I don't know.
I mean, does that document exist? No.
Don't think so.
Code of conduct is within the rental policy document.
Yeah, I think it was. Going to the library.
Well, you're talking about EDR.
My next event is. Thank you though.
Oh, wasn't that nice of it? I still have to get home by 6.
It was, I'm trying to remember what we were referring to, but I thought it was a BIM document.
Well,
There's a code of conduct for council.
Yeah.
Staff, and there's a code of conduct, I believe, for the public. But
Right.
there's one that is for infinite facility that includes those 4
The only time we've talked about code of conduct is within the rentals policy. And if you look at
Page 6 of the rental.
page 18 of the package, which is 6 of the rental policy,
There's a code of conduct.
there's a code of conduct.
Oh, so there are these different codes of conduct.
Sorry, I'm a document blind at this point.
Yeah, I understand.
Might we just remove C code of conduct, remove that section of the last
I think we
sentence?
just keep
you
it
know?
out for now because we got it covered because it exists in a different place.
I think we might still need to do it. We have it for renters and we have, I think we might still need to build one for users of the facility.
Right.
But that-
Then we were doing that and drawing from that.
We could,
We
well, we
don't have
have
it
it now,
now.
so.
We don't have it.
So delete it.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
since it doesn't exist, we have to take it out at this point, but we might need something, you're right. But if you have other codes of conduct for operating in this way that exist in documents already, they will apply.
And where's the rules of the Bona Community Center, which are available?
It's this one right here.
The first bullet.
Okay, cross that, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, any other comments on acceptable use?
no, the first bullet.
Right.
The rules that are available for front ground.
Available to check out, yes.
I'm assuming
There
that's.
was the code of conduct. Sorry.
I think, just to help you, Lee, I seem to remember in that discussion that there were some codes of conduct existing already with the Rhode Island municipality. There's none?
Or that you're.
We have one for
working on
county
something.
code of conduct.
Mayor and council, there's code.
What are you to use for the rec program?
We have something in the weight room. And we've had things posted in the fitness studio, but it's not necessarily or not at all embedded in policy.
Sorry, Judy?
If we remove that line, we've got the purpose so that all the users and contractors and visitors adhere to guidelines promoting safe, respect and responsible use. Take out that first bullet,
Mhm.
put it into the future
To do.
wish list. And then I think instruction is still
Right,
viable.
right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay,
Good eye.
thank you. Any other comments?
Is acceptable use a term that's used in other recreation facilities that sort of struck me as odd?
I think it started out.
I don't remember when we first came up with that.
I think you're right. There was something else that used to be and then it got shifted. And I seem to think it came from we looked at so many, policies from various organizations.
Yeah, they don't necessarily call it a code of conduct, but they do have policy around
Yeah.
that, which is we were in the process of putting it together. Where Lee was,
It's talking about technology.
We move on from acceptable use. Motion's gonna be for all of this last one.
Yes.
Accessibility.
Like
Sorry.
acceptability, could you look at that?
I went to them with the previous.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, no comments on that? I mean, I think we actually adopted the last time. didn't we?
yeah.
Sorry, I want to back us up to a vision statement as well here too, which we missed.
Yeah, we're back now.
So that's on the back side of the rates sheet grid. Any comments?
Well, I'm not happy that it's not the vision statement that we had when we told people we were building a community center.
Yeah, well, what we did is because when you did that, you did it without this committee and talking how we were gonna work together. with the heart. So what we did, is we looked at it, we tried to build a vision.
We've got a memorandum of understanding that has this vision written in it.
Yeah, this is just core values and it's not.
No, I'm not talking about the core values, I'm only talking about the vision statement. Vision statement to me should be what's in the memorandum of understanding.
Well,
Now, you want
Sorry,
to stick with the vision statement, then the other question is designed to stand, the community center, I guess, is designed to stand out as a landmark featuring governance, arts, culture, why isn't it say municipal offices
Governance.
instead of governance? Or is governance supposed to be government? Is that a typo?
Sorry, Jillian had a comment here.
Our intention was not to modify it from the original MOU. When I'm recalling now, our intention was just to take it from that aspirational vision before a facility was built and make it a little bit more, now we have this facility and we still wish to, maintain that vision of its role in the community. But it's very unfortunate that it's not reading that our intention has continued through.
But do you have a typo in that second to last line? Is it governance or government? Because it's local government offices. Arts, culture, and recreation. Well, its governance doesn't fit with the sentence structure.
Well, I guess the term governance can be viewed more broadly than just the local government. Because there's other user groups of the facility that have governance structures.
Yeah, but they're user groups. It's arts, culture, recreational components. I mean, everywhere else we talked about municipal office. Why isn't?
I think we were trying to make it move towards what the activity was here. And the original vision statement was for a building. And it didn't really address what the activities were. So the tweak we were making was to address what was going to be happening within the facility.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I can disagree with you guys and both know. Okay.
Oh, well, I just wondering if what you would propose, just.
Well, I would like to see municipal offices in there. Because it's, or government offices or government, but because government is arts, culture, recreational, it's the same sort of structure.
I see. No, I meant about why we got into it. Judy, do you want to speak, since you were the one who was working on the language, is it changed from governance to government?
There was some discussion in terms of the original municipal offices providing support for the community center form a backdrop role in the building design. And that turned into a discussion, I believe, both in the subgroup and then in the larger group in terms of how, like Liam was saying, that there's many different aspects to the governance. And so the third of the building is going to be local government offices, but a lot of the work that's going to be done or the discussions that are going to be happening, sponsored by the municipality, way too broad. So it's going to be, public hearings and things and cafes and whatever. So it was trying to broaden up or expand on the idea of not just having the separate office space, but having the whole facility as part of making going better.
I think we're splitting hairs on small
Okay,
little
that's fine.
words
That's
and
what I said. You guys were happy to present what you want to present. I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just
We want to
giving you a
catch,
chair.
we want to catch that down.
Is there some,
Gail.
Oh, no, go on, Steph.
I was not on the committee. I just wondered if it was a modifying component, is it being used as an adjective to.
Well, this sentence structure just doesn't, we're talking about art, we're talking about culture, we're talking about recreational, those are all activities or things.
Right.
And governance isn't either of those.
Well, governance is an activity. I think that's why we turned it into governance from.
Well,
Can I just ask, can we read the original one out loud and just hear us?
No, which version?
Like 10 minutes left.
Do you mean the MOU vision?
No, I don't
Or
remember
the-
the one that you.
Yeah, the one in the
Yeah,
MOU.
never understanding that we
But then I
labored
have
over
the
it. MOR, I can read it out loud.
But I don't know, this is it, I think that she.
It's on the communication.
Okay, so I don't have a number on the bottom of this one, what version it is, but at some point from the MOU with BIM and BIAC, our vision for the Golden Island Community Center is an economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable facility that's truly of, for, and by the community. It's the heart of the community, a place where islanders can gather, share, and participate in activities and events that build and celebrate a healthy and resilient community. It's designed to stand out as a landmark for local activity and connection, featured are arts, cultural, and recreational components knit together by the community living room space. Municipal offices provide support for the community center and form a backdrop role in the building design. BICC will invigorate our community through exploration of participation in cultural and recreational activities. It will help us stretch our understanding and perceptions of who we are as a community and how we can work, plan, live together on our island. It will help us realize our community brand promise. We are better for being here.
Installation for sure.
So yeah, that was the original MOU.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this was created out of the need for like the core values as a kind of a front piece that you have with your vision statement. So it was distilled into a shorter paragraph. So.
But you see, under your core value, where you're talking about governance, you're saying Bowen Island municipality has the ultimate authority over the policy and budget for the community center. So that's nothing to do with the governance and management and the local government activities that everything else that the municipality does.
Yeah, and that was to clarify the relationship with a joint management committee.
So to me, there's confusion between using governance there and governance down there.
I see.
They're different words.
So your amendment you're proposing is to change,
I just say
Governance into
featuring,
government.
yeah, and maybe you do
Local
it
government.
arts, culture and recreational components as well as local
local government.
government. Yeah.
Yep. Judy, what do you feel about changing?
care.
Okay, so I would propose that we change featuring local government, arts, cultural, and recreation components. We'll just change governance to local government for this one.
And I like having government coming after.
After our,
Yeah.
culture and recreational and
Arts,
local
culture,
government
recreation
integrated within.
components,
Yeah, thank you.
local government integrated into one community center. So did you catch that step as an amendment?
Extra recreational components.
Local government.
Comma, local
Well,
government.
actually, why don't you just say featuring arts, cultural, recreational and local government components integrated
Local
within
government.
one.
Okay, sure. Local government components integrated.
And my only other question is, under diversity and inclusivity, you're referring to 3 EDI guidelines. And what do you do if there's differences between them all?
The differences are in
I have
conflict with each other.
Okay, so there's, I haven't looked at the 3 of them in parallel, so we're not gonna find one thing, something slightly different than the other, and then
They're not all the same, but they're not conflicting with
there's
each
not
other.
conflicting, so there's nothing conflicting, okay.
Would someone like to move that we amend this vision statement as amended or?
Can we just do like when they're, sorry.
So, sorry, we're gonna jump to our recommendation in the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, recommendation that the Community Center Joint Management Committee recommend that council adopt the following policies as related to the Bowen Island Community Center operations. Vision statement as amended. Acceptable use policy
That's
as amended. Accessibility policy, and the rental policy, which we've already discussed. Okay. And I have something to move.
Yes.
So Jillian Tango up first that time. Judy was second. All in favor?
We don't just.
Before you vote on it, it doesn't matter, you've got to remove the C code of conduct for user groups, staff, volunteers, and
Oh, right,
visitors.
Right.
Conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And one more question. C BIM accessibility guidelines. We have those yet?
They're in development.
Read the accessibility action plan.
Or do we just leave that out?
TBD, to be developed.
I think we probably should take it out, that sheet.
Okay.
Sure. All right.
Okay, I got it, yep, got it.
Okay, as amended, then we had Jillian moving. Council getting seconded, all in favor? Opposed?
Banner,
Okay,
banner.
all right, new business. Is there any new business or other business to be brought forward?
You see how all this worked?
Sorry,
Giving a construction update.
that would be great, thank you.
So we have a schedule meeting, next week with the builder, which will help provide greater clarity. Currently, they're claiming that they will achieve, substantial completion at the third week of July. But, you know, it is construction on Bowen Island, and the project has been delayed for quite a long time, so while they're assuring us that they're going to do everything they possibly can to hold to that completion date, it is entirely feasible that that gets pushed out. But it seems quite reasonable that the completion will occur this summer, and that would also then be followed up with us moving from this hall to that hall, and ideally, if things go well, we'll be opening the doors before the fall. Or by the fall for use and programming.
Is it like September 21st fall?
We're not.
Well, technically, the fall goes until December 20th. It's December 21st. I learned that in the province. That's why we only ever use seasons.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Okay, is there any other business?
No.
Sorry, Jim.
Sorry, just to ask, because our turnaround to develop the staff report package for council is very fast. So we had talked about having 2 additional documents that were part of it all, our reasoning or rationale document and the comparative rate sheets. So just checking in on.
Right, and I did a draft and I sent it around of the.
And
Do you want me to flush that out, Jillian, to include the process that you and I left out? Thank you for making it the subcommittees.
No, that'll be part of the staff report, that's okay.
Thank you for
But just
telling
sort of
us.
the rationale and what I'm saying.
That's right, and I it's.
Okay.
One pager and I sent it to you. I didn't
Okay.
What's that? I didn't get. You guys didn't get it?
you sent it to me and Jillian. And I sent it to Mimi and asked her there was like a couple of spelling corrections, but because I don't use Word, I asked her to make any spelling corrections. I thought it was excellent
Yeah,
and thorough. I thought it was
let
excellent.
me send it to you. I feel bad.
No, I'm sorry.
Can we send it to the entire
I'll
committee?
send it to the entire committee, right?
It's just the spelling on like analysis
Now,
is right for the second half, and it's just wrong on the first half. You could just make the change. It's the only comment I have.
because I capitalized it, the first one, it did spell.
Oh, so the spell check doesn't get it, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so my apologies,
No, I was wondering why you had that look. I was going and sent that.
Okay, so that's just gonna go to council without any recommendation from this group.
Well, I think it would be an attachment with the staff report, if
Perfect.
still can explain.
Okay, I'm gonna have to turn Zoom off because it starts to convert a video and that takes a while.
Yeah.
So just want you guys want to keep chatting,
Okay, are we finishing up while we're still on Zoom?
we finish up what I have.
Question period? So yeah, no information items here,
Done.
really. Question period, there's nobody here. Okay, next meeting to be determined. We don't really know what's gonna happen there, will we? So